All right, everyone, welcome back to PALS TV for your lunchtime segment. Great start to the day with our friends from Art Outside the Lines in Gallia doing terrific segments for us. Now we're going to head over to Columbus, join Phil. Phil has, since I think season 1, started the book club in Columbus, and we've been reading Don Quixote. So I think we're getting pretty close there. So we're going to continue our adventures with Dawn through Spain. So live from Columbus, we have Phil.
There's my button. Welcome back, gang. As Aaron said, we've been doing this since the very beginning, and we are back at it today. So Don Quixote has had a bunch of adventures so far. He's I would say he's gone forth and done the right thing and everywhere, even if it didn't look like the right thing when he was beating up priests. But he thought it was, or getting beaten up by windmills. But he thought it was the right thing and was doing it for good reasons. So at this point, he's been basically captured by his friends back home. They're telling him, you got to stop doing this. And he is arguing with them, and he and Sancho are planning their escape as we speak. Let me grab down to the area we're at. The goat herd. That's right, we were in that good story about the goat herd, or of the goat herds, the goat herd story. Let me pull that up for us all. And so in the goat herd story, he was talking about how he was in love with a young lady, and somebody else that was just as cool as he was also in love with that lady, and they were trying to find out who would eventually marry her by convincing her father that was what was going on. So the last thing that the goat herd said was, we still don't know. Nobody has told us who she's going to marry. Essentially, her father's going to make that decision. So here we go. About this time, there arrived in our town one Vicente de la Roca, the son of a poor peasant of the same town. The said Vicente having... Oh, wait, we know about him. I'm on the wrong section. So the fancy soldier came in, and the soldier was kind of annoying. He said he could do everything. He bragged a lot about a bunch of stuff. Nobody really found that interesting, except, as it turns out, the young lady, Leandra. The soldier, then, that I have described, this Vicente de la Roca, this bravo, gallant, musician, poet, was often seen and watched by Leandra from a window of her house, which looked out on the plaza. So, as I had just mentioned, this guy can do a bunch of different things, this new soldier, but for everybody that watches him, the one that really watches him is Leandra, the guy the goat herd, or the lady the goat herd is in love with. The glitter of his showy attire took her fancy. His ballads bewitched her, where he gave away 20 copies of every one he made. The tales of his exploits, which he told about himself, came to her ears, and in short, as the devil no doubt had arranged it, she fell in love with him before the presumption of making love to her suggested itself to him. And as in love affairs, none are more easily brought to an issue than those which have the inclination of the lady for an ally. Leandra and Vicente came to an understanding without any difficulty, and before any of her numerous suitors had any suspicion of her design, she had already carried it into effect, having left the house of her dearly beloved father. Whoa, too far. Her mother she had none, and disappeared from the village with the soldier, who came more triumphantly out of this enterprise than out of any of the large number he laid claim to. What we're saying here is, Leandra, the lady, really likes the soldier's songs, and she likes his fancy clothes, and she's, all these stories he's telling about, all the places he's been and all the stuff he's done, that's really exciting. So instead of waiting for her father to pick a husband for her, she figures it out on her own and says, I'm marrying the soldier. And they just take off into the night together. All the village and all who heard of it were amazed at the affair. I was aghast, Anselmo thunderstruck, her father full of grief, her relations indignant, the authorities all in a ferment, the officers of the Brotherhood in arms. So this is not usual. Well, all of us can decide who we fall in love with, who we marry, things like that. That is not true at this time. In some places, it's still not true today. That your family picks who you're going to marry. And it is not only culturally the way it is at this time, it's legally the way it is in Don Quixote's time and place in that area of Spain. So everybody in the town is upset that she would make up her own mind. They scoured the roads, they searched the woods in all quarters, and at the end of 3 days, they found the flighty Leandra in a mountain cave, stripped to her shift, and robbed of all the money and precious jewels she'd carried away from home with her. So they all go out looking for her, and they found her. Oh, hey, here she is. They took all her fancy clothes, and she's just sitting here in her nightgown, and she had a bunch of money she left with, and that's all gone. Whoa, what happened here? They brought her back to her unhappy father and questioned her as to her misfortune, and she confessed without pressure that Vicente de la Roca had deceived her, and under promise of marrying her, had induced her to leave her father's house, as he meant to take her to the richest and most delightful city in the whole world, which was Naples, and that she, ill-advised and deluded, had believed him and robbed her father and handed over all to him the night she disappeared, and that he had carried her away to a rugged mountain and shut her up in the Eve, or that should not be Eve, that's cave, and shut her up in the cave where they had found her. So she says, boy, this guy's going to take me some fancy places. He was going to take her to Naples in Italy. Ooh, actually, no, it wouldn't be in Italy at that time. Naples would have been an independent kingdom, known as the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies for some bizarre reason. So he was going to take her to Naples, which is a very nice place. And she says, oh, that's great. I'll take a bunch of the money and stuff that my dad has lying around. We can use that to pay our way. So she grabs all that stuff. And they take off, and he just steals all her stuff and leaves her in a cave, which is not very polite. She said, moreover, that the soldier, without robbing her of her honor, had taken from her everything she had and made off, leaving her in the cave, a thing that still further surprised everybody. I said, well, good. He didn't touch her or anything, so that's good. He just took all her stuff and left her there. It was not easy for us to credit the young man's countenance, but she asserted it with such earnestness that it helped to console her distressed father, who thought nothing of what had been taken, since the jewel that once lost can never be recovered had been left to his daughter. So the father said, well, at least he didn't touch you, so that's good. I'm not so worried about the money, but you're okay, so that's what's important. And what's more important is that because nobody touched you, I can get money for you by marrying you off to somebody. Is really the subtext here. The same day that Leandra made her appearance, her father removed her from our sight and took her away to shut her up in a convent in a town near this, in the hope that time may wear away some of the disgrace she had incurred. So now that she's gone off to elope with this guy, people are going to talk about her in town. So Dad says, well, we're going to wait until everybody stops talking about you and saying nasty things. While you're there, you're going to go live with some nuns. So you won't come into anybody's attention, and you can just be by yourself with them. And that'll be fine. Very common at the time to do that. Leandra's youth furnished an excuse for her fault, at least with those to whom it was no consequence whether she was good or bad. But those who knew her shrewdness and intelligence did not attribute her misdemeanor to ignorance, but to wantonness and the natural disposition of women, which is for the most part flighty and ill-regulated. Again, we get into the usual sexism of the time. I says, well, she's really young, so most people aren't going to say she did a horrible thing by taking off with this guy. Everybody else says, she's always been really smart. But, she knew what she was doing. It must be because she's a woman, and that's how women are. Which is not how they are, by the way, but is very much what they believed then. Leandra withdrawn from sight. Anselmo's eyes grew blind, or at any rate, found nothing to look at that gave them any pleasure, and mine were in darkness without a ray of light to direct them to anything enjoyable while Leandra was away. So Anselmo, the guy that the goat herd is competing with to marry Leandra, both of them, the goat herd and Anselmo, we can't say Leandra, everything is just not fun. I don't like seeing anything. There's no joy left in life. Our melancholy grew greater. Our patience grew less. We cursed the soldiers' finery and railed at the carelessness of Leandra's father. Oh, not only do they feel depressed and sad, now they're just getting angry at everybody because the lady they're in love with, they can't hang out with. At last, Anselmo and I agreed to leave the village and come to this valley, and he feeding a great flock of sheep of his own, and I a large herd of goats of mine. We pass our life among the trees, giving vent to our sorrows, together singing the fair Leandra's praises, or upbraiding her, or else sighing alone, and to heaven pouring forth our complaints in solitude. So the two of them come here, and they both own a lot of livestock. So they brought their livestock to near where Don Quixote lives, and they decide, we're just going to hang out here and complain about our lives to each other, what they have done. Following our example, many more of Leandra's lovers have come to these rude mountains and adopted our mode of life. And they're so numerous that one would fancy the place had been turned into the pastoral Arcadia. So full it is of shepherds and sheepfolds, nor is there a spot in it where the name of the fair Leandra is not heard. And while the goat herd and Anselmo were the two, probably the best choices to marry Leandra, at least according to the goat herd, there were a whole lot of people that were trying to marry her. And apparently they've all come to the same area and brought their sheep and their goats and all their livestock. So it's almost a whole community, a tiny village of Leandra's suitors, shall we say. Her would-be boyfriends. Here one curses her and calls her capricious, fickle, and immodest. There another condemns her as frail and frivolous. This pardons absolves her. That spurns and reviles her. One extols her beauty, another assails her character, and in short, all abuse her and all adore her. And to such a pitch is this general infatuation gone, that there were some who complain of her scorn without ever having exchanged a word with her, and even some that bewail and mourn the raging fever of jealousy, for which she never gave anyone cause, for, as I have already said, her misconduct was known before her passion. Now there are all these people here. From time to time, they switch. Sometimes they say, oh, I miss Leandra, she's so wonderful. And other times they say, what a horrible, horrible woman. Why are any of us chasing after her at all? And there's a lot of them, so they switch a lot. And whatever you want to hear, you can hear any given day. There's no nook among the rocks, no brookside, no shade beneath the trees that is not haunted by some shepherd telling his woes to the breezes. Wherever there is an echo, it repeats the name of Leandra. The mountains ring with Leandra. Leandra murmur the brooks, and Leandra keeps us all bewildered and bewitched, hoping without hope and fearing without knowing what we fear. Not only is it all of us talking, it's like nature itself is talking about her all the time because we won't shut up about her and it echoes everywhere. And all we can do is think about her and nothing's helping. Of all this silly set, the one that shows the least and also the most sense is my rival Anselmo. For having so many other things to complain of, he only complains of separation and the accompaniment of a rebeck, which he plays admirably. He sings his complaints in verses that show his ingenuity. So rather than doing most of the complaining that everybody, this Anselmo is playing a stringed instrument. I believe a rebeck has 2 strings and is played with a bow, but I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else. But anyway, a stringed instrument. So he plays the little instrument and he sings songs about, oh, woe is me, I'm not dating Leandra. Which, at least everybody gets to hear a nice song. I follow another, easier, and to my mind, wiser course, and that is to rail at the frivolity of women, at their inconstancy, their double dealing, their broken promises, their unkept pledges, and in short, the want of reflection they show in fixing their affections and inclinations. So, like Anselmo just sings songs about how sad he is, the goatherd instead has just decided to hate women and tell everybody about it. So he thinks that's a wiser course, and I believe that I would disagree with him. This, sirs, was the reason of words and expressions I made use of to this goat when I came up just now. For she is a female, I have a contempt for her, though she is the best in all my fold. Now, even though this goat is his best goat, just because it's a lady goat, the goatherd does not like her, because that is what he's decided, because Leandra isn't dating him. This is the story I promised to tell you. If I have been tedious in telling it, I will not be slow to serve you. My hut is close by, and I have fresh milk and dainty cheese there, as well as a variety of toothsome fruit, no less pleasing to the eye than to the palate. Well, that's the end of my story, says the goatherd. It took a little while to get through, but hey, if you guys want to come by for some lunch, I got some food in my hut. It's right over here. So now Don Quixote is going to respond to the goatherd. Unsurprisingly, Don Quixote does not agree with hating all women because they're women. The goatherd's tale gave great satisfaction to all the hearers, and the canon especially enjoyed it, for he had remarked with particular intention the manner in which it had been told, which was unlike the manner of a clownish goatherd, as it was like that of a polished city wit. And he observed that the curate had been quite right in saying that the woods bred men of learning. Most of the people, and it won't be Don Quixote, in the group say, "Oh, what a great story. Not only is this a good story, I would have thought that this guy was uneducated and couldn't tell a good story, but he told it really well." As you'll note, he has a large flock and was just talking about how rich he was. So the guy's probably educated. He's not working for somebody else as a shepherd. They all offered their services to Eugenio, but he who showed him the most liberal in this way was Don Quixote, who said to him, "Most assuredly, brother goatherd, if I found myself in a position to attempt any adventure, I would this very instant set out on your behalf, and would rescue Leandra from that convent, where she is no doubt kept against her will, in spite of the abbess and all who might try to prevent me, and would place her in your hands to deal with her according to your will and pleasure, observing, however, the laws of chivalry which lay down that no violence of any kind is to be offered to any damsel." Don Quixote says, "Oh, clearly they have kidnapped this woman. Yeah, if I were able to go out and do things, and I can't because these people are stopping me, I would go rescue her, and I'd bring her back here. But make sure you don't do anything mean to her, because you can't. But I trust in God our Lord that the might of one malignant enchanter may not prove so great, but that the power of another better disposed may prove superior to it. And then I promise you my support and assistance, as I am bound to do by my profession, which is none other than to give aid to the weak and needy." Remember, Don Quixote thinks he's under an enchantment, can't go adventuring anymore. You know what? I'll find another wizard to break this enchantment, and then I'll go rescue her. Yes, they're in one of the two top drawers, say GMC.
This is GMC.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to answer a question. The goatherd eyed him, and noticing Don Quixote's sorry appearance and looks, he was filled with wonder and asked the barber who was next to him, "Senor, who is this man who makes such a figure and talks in such a strain?" The goatherd says, "This guy's talking nonsense. Who is this guy talking?" "Who should it be," said the barber, "but the famous Don Quixote of La Mancha, the undoer of injustice, the righter of wrongs, the protector of damsels, the terror of giants, and the winner of battles." The barber is clearly making fun of Don Quixote, believing he's a knight here. That, said the goatherd, sounds like what one reads in the books of the knights errant, who did all that you say this man does, though it's my belief that either you are joking, or else this gentleman has empty lodgings in his head. And the goatherd says, either you're telling a joke, or that guy's not right. Nobody's really a knight. That doesn't exist anymore. That's just storybooks. You are a great scoundrel, said Don Quixote. It is you who are empty and a fool. I am fuller than ever was the horse unbitched that bore you, and passing from words to deeds, he caught up a loaf that was near him, and set it full in the goatherd's face with such force that he flattened his nose. But the goatherd, who did not understand jokes, and found himself roughly handled in such good earnest, paying no respect to carpet, tablecloth, or diners, sprang upon Don Quixote, and seizing him by the throat with both hands, would no doubt have throttled him, had not Sancho Panza that instant come to the rescue, and grasping him by the shoulders, flung him down on the table, smashing plates, breaking glasses, and upsetting and scattering everything on it. And Don Quixote says, hey, you're not going to tell me I'm a crazy person. I know what's going on. And he grabs a piece of bread and punches the goatherd in the face with the bread. The goatherd says, hey, you can't attack me, and jumps up on Don Quixote and is going to choke him. But Sancho Panza, our favorite squire, comes by and pulls the goatherd off and throws him on the ground so he can't hurt Don Quixote anymore. You'll remember that Sancho Panza promised that he would never attack another knight, even if Don Quixote is getting beat up by him. He can only go after poor people. Don Quixote, finding himself free, strove to get on top of the goatherd, who, with his face covered in blood and soundly kicked by Sancho, was on all fours, feeling about for one of the table knives to take a bloody revenge with. So Sancho's beating up on the goatherd, Don Quixote's jumping on top of him, the goatherd's looking for a knife to start stabbing people. It's getting into a pretty serious fight at this point. The canon and the curate, however, prevented him, but the barber so contrived it that he got Don Quixote under him and rained down upon him such a shower of fisticuffs that the poor knight's face streamed with blood as freely as his own. So everybody's trying to help everybody pull apart. But the barber just jumps on top and starts beating on Don Quixote. The canon and the curate were bursting with laughter. The officers were capering with delight, and both the one and the other hissed them on as they do dogs that are worrying one another in a fight. And everybody else just stands back and is watching this fight and laughing at it. They're having a good time watching the barber beat up on Don Quixote. Sancho alone was frantic, for he could not free himself from the grasp of one of the canon's servants, who kept him from going to his master's assistance. Sancho is not laughing. Sancho says, oh, I got to help poor Don Quixote. He's my boss and my friend. But he's being held back and cannot provide any aid. At last, while they were all, with the exception of the two bruisers who were mauling each other, in high glee and enjoyment, they heard a trumpet sound a note so doleful that it made them all look in the direction whence the sound seemed to come. So they're all laughing and laughing, and then there's this really sad sounding trumpet. And they're like, where's that sad trumpet sound coming from? And they started looking around. But the one that was most excited by hearing it was Don Quixote, who, though sorely against his will, was under the goatherd, and something more than pretty well pummeled, said to him, brother devil, for it is impossible that thou must be one, since thou hast had might and strength enough to overcome mine. I ask thee to agree to a truce for but 1 hour, for the solemn note of yonder trumpet that falls on our ears seemed to me to summon me to some new adventure. Don Quixote says, hey, wait, we got to stop fighting. I would have beat you up, but clearly the devil is working through you, but we got to stop. Let's take a break for an hour because that trumpet is clearly meant for me and I got to go respond to it. The goatherd, who was by this time tired of pummeling and being pummeled, released him at once. And Don Quixote, rising to his feet and turning his eyes to the quarter where the sound had been heard, suddenly saw coming down the slope of a hill several men clad in white like penitents. So Goatherd says, all right, yeah, you don't want to fight? I don't fight. And Don Quixote jumps up, and there's these people dressed all in white coming along where the trumpet came from. These would be white robes with pointy white hats, who to us would look kind of like the Ku Klux Klan. This was a religious order in Spain at the time, long before the Ku Klux Klan got started, and the Klan just stole their outfits. These are not bad people. They just dress like bad people dress now. The fact was that the clouds had that year withheld their moisture from the earth. And in all the villages of the district, they were organizing processions, rogations, and penances, imploring God to open the hands of his mercy and send the rain. And to this end, the people of a village that was hard by were going in a procession to a holy hermitage there was on one side of the valley. So it's been dry and they need rain. So they've been talking to everybody and they said, oh, we're going to have a big religious festival to try and get some rain. So that's what they're doing. Don Quixote, when he saw the strange garb of the penitents, without reflecting how often he had seen it before, took it into his head that this was a case of adventure, and it fell to him alone as a knight errant to engage in it. He was all the more confirmed in this notion by the idea that an image draped in black they had with them was some illustrious lady that these villains and discourteous thieves were carrying off by force. So instead of religious people, Don Quixote says, oh, clearly there's a bad guys, and they're trying to kidnap a woman because they're carrying some big black thing. And whatever that is something they are going to use in their religious ceremonies. As soon as this occurred to him, he ran with all speed to Rocinante, who was grazing at large, and taking the bridle and the buckler from the saddle bow, had him bridled in an instant. Calling to Sancho for his sword, he mounted Rocinante, braced his buckler on his arm, and in a loud voice exclaimed to those who stood by, now, noble company, you shall see how important it is that there should be knights in the world, professing thereof knight errantry. Now I say, you shall see, by the deliverance of that worthy lady, who was born captive there, whether knights errant deserve to be held in estimation. And so saying, he brought his legs to bear on Rocinante, for he had no spurs. And at a full canter, for in all this voracious history we never read of Rocinante fairly galloping, set off to encounter the penitents, though the curate, the canon, and the barber ran to prevent him. Don Quixote says, all right, time to take care of this. And he runs, jumps on his horse, grabs his armor, and says, all right, you were making fun of me for being a knight, but I'm going to charge out, and I'm going to take care of this, and then you will see how great it is to have a knight around here. And he starts taking off, and all the priests and stuff and his friends from Ulm are like, oh, what are you doing? But they can't catch him up. But it was out of their power, nor did he even stop for the shouts of Sancho calling after him. Where are you going, Senor Don Quixote? What devils have possessed you to set against our Catholic faith? Plague take me. Mind, that is a procession of penitents. And the lady they are carrying on that stand there is the blessed image of the Immaculate Virgin. Everybody's yelling and nobody will stop him. Sancho says, whoa, 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 whoa. No, that's the church doing that. That's not a woman they're kidnapping. That's a statue of the Virgin Mary. Take care of what you were doing, senor. For this time it may be safely said you don't know what you were about. I said, look, I told you those were windmills and you got beat up by windmills and you said they were giants. And we've argued a lot, but definitely this time, don't attack a bunch of people going to church. Highlight. Sancho labored in vain, for his master was so bent on coming to quarters with these sheeted figures and releasing the lady in black that he did not hear a word. And even had he heard, he would not have turned back if the king had ordered. So Don Quixote is taken off. It's kind of loud when you're riding a horse at full speed. He can't hear anybody behind, and he's focused on what he's doing. And to be honest, even if he did hear everything, the king himself couldn't stop him because he's got an adventure and he's going on that adventure. He came up with the procession and reined in Rocinante, who was already anxious enough to slacken speed a little. And in a hoarse, excited voice, he exclaimed, you who hide your faces, perhaps because you are not good subjects, pay attention and listen to what I am about to say to you. Again, these were full hooded white robes that were worn very often in Spain. Doesn't mean they're bad guys, just looks the same. But they have masks over and said, hey, I don't know why you're wearing masks, but you need to listen to me. I'm going to tell you some stuff. And mostly what he's going to tell them is you need to release the lady that you're kidnapping, which they are not doing. The first to halt were those who were carrying the image, and one of the four ecclesiastics who were chanting the litany, struck by the strange figure of Don Quixote, the leanness of Rocinante, and the other ludicrous peculiarities he observed, said in reply to him, brother, if you have anything to say to us, say it quickly. These brethren are whipping themselves, and we cannot stop, nor is it reasonable we should stop to hear anything, unless indeed it is short enough to be said in 2 words. So there's one of the priests that are along said, hey, whoa, we can't stop very long. We're going to church. We got stuff to do. We're busy right now. And you look ridiculous. Clearly you don't have anything important to say. So either say it in 2 words, or get out the way, because we're going. I will say it in 1, replied Don Quixote, and it is this, that at once, this very instant, ye release that fair lady whose tears and sad aspect show plainly that you're carrying her off against her will, and that you've committed some scandalous outrage against her. And I, who was born in the world to redress all such like wrongs, will not permit you to advance another step until you've restored to her the liberty she pines for and desires. And Don Quixote says, 2 words, I only need 1, and then goes on a very long speech, where he says, that statue is clearly an actual woman, and you have kidnapped her, and you need to release her. And if you don't, I'm going to beat you up. From these words, all the hearers concluded that he must be a madman, and began to laugh heartily, and their laughter acted like gunpowder on Don Quixote's fury. For drawing his sword, and without another word, he made a rush at the stand. So, as has been kind of the way things have been going for Don Quixote, they hear him talking about this. It doesn't make any sense to them. And they start laughing at him. And he's angry because they're just laughing at him. So he draws his sword and he starts coming at him. One of those who supported it, leaving the burden to his comrades, advanced to meet him, flourishing a forked stick that he had for propping up the stand when resting. And with this, he caught a mighty cut Don Quixote made at him that severed in 2. But with the portion that remained in his hand, he dealt such a thwack on the shoulder of Don Quixote's sword arm, which the buckler could not protect against the clownish assault. The poor Don Quixote came to the ground in a sad plight. So as Don Quixote's charging in, one of the people carrying the statue has a big stick that he holds it up with. He jumps away from the statue, comes charging back at Don Quixote. Don Quixote swings and cuts the stick in half, but with what's left of the stick, the guy carrying the statue smacks Don Quixote, knocks him off his horse again. Sancho Panza, who was coming on close behind, puffing and blowing, seeing him fall, cried out to his assailant not to strike him again, for he was a poor enchanted knight who had never harmed anyone all the days of his life. But what checked the clown was not Sancho's shouting, but seeing that Don Quixote did not stir hand or foot, and so, fancying he had killed him, he hastily hitched up his tunic under his girdle and took to his heels across the country like a deer. So Sancho comes up and says, whoa, the knight you're beating up is enchanted by an evil wizard. He wouldn't hurt anybody, I promise. Please don't beat him up. And the guy that's beating up Don Quixote said, he doesn't really concern himself about that, but Don Quixote's not moving at all. He says, oh, I might have killed him. They're going to arrest me for murder. And so he just runs away. By this time, all Don Quixote's companions had come up to where he lay, but the processionists, seeing them come running, and with them the officers of the Brotherhood with their crossbows, apprehended mischief, and clustering round the image, raised their hoods and grasped their scourges, as did the priests their tapers, and awaited the attack, resolved to defend themselves and even to take the offensive against their assailants if they could. So all of Don Quixote's friends from home that have been keeping him from his adventures, come charging up to try and stop Don Quixote. But all the pilgrims and the people going to church, they say, "Oh no, these people are charging us. Oh dear." And they get ready to fight. Fortune, however, arranged the matter better than expected. For all Sancho did was to fling himself on his master's body, raising over him the most doleful and laughable lamentation that ever was heard, for he believed he was dead. So instead of attacking, Sancho just jumps on top of Don Quixote and says, "Oh, how horrible it is! You've killed Don Quixote! Oh, very sad." And people laughed at him. The curate was known to another curate who walked in the procession, and their recognition of one another set at rest the apprehensions of both parties. The first then told the other in 2 words who Don Quixote was, and he and the whole troop of penitents went to see if the poor gentleman was dead, and heard Sancho Panza saying, with tears in his eyes, "O flower of chivalry, that with one blow of a stick has ended the course of thy well-spent life. O pride of thy race, honor and glory of all La Mancha, nay, of all the world, that for want of thee will be full of evildoers, no longer in fear of punishment for their misdeeds. O thou, generous above all the Alexanders, since for only 8 months of service thou hast given me the best island the sea girds us around, humble with the proud, haughty with the humble, encounterer of dangers, endurer of outrages, enamored without reason, imitator of the good, scourge of the wicked, enemy of the mean, in short, knight errant, which is all that can be said." Sancho says, "Oh no, Don Quixote's dead. You were the best person ever. You were a great knight. And I got a lot of fancy things to say about you, but just calling you knight, that says it all. So that's what I'll do. And I'm very sad that now you're dead." At the cries and moans of Sancho, Don Quixote came to himself. And the first word he heard was, "He who lives separated from you, sweetest Dulcinea, has greater miseries to endure than these. Aid me, friend Sancho, to mount the enchanted cart, for I am not in a condition to press the saddle of Rocinante, as this shoulder is all knocked to pieces." Oh, good, Don Quixote's not dead, and Sancho, yelling, has woken him up from where he was passed out. And Don Quixote says, whoa, this is rough, but don't worry, it's going to get rougher in life, and I'm a knight, and I can handle it. But this shoulder's really bad, and I can't ride my horse. So help me up under this cart, and we can get on. "That I will do with all my heart, Señor," said Sancho. "And let us return to our village with these gentlemen, who seek your good, and there we will prepare for making another sally, which may turn out more profitable and creditable to us." Sancho says, yeah, I'll definitely help you up. And instead of fighting these people who are trying to keep you from adventures, let's go with them home, and then you can rest up, and then we'll plan a new adventure and go out on that one. And it'll turn out a lot better than it has been." "Thou art right, Sancho," returned Don Quixote. "We'll be wise to let the malign influence of the star, which now prevails, pass off." Don Quixote says, "You're right. Clearly, this is not a good time for adventuring. So we're going to wait a little bit, and when it's a good time for adventuring, we will go out again." The canon, the curate, and the barber told him he would act very wisely in doing as he said, and so, highly amused at Sancho Panza's simplicities, they placed Don Quixote in the cart as before. Don Quixote's friend says, "Yep, that's a good idea. We're going to laugh at your squire here, but let's get Don Quixote in the cart." The procession once more formed itself in order and proceeded on its road. The goatherd took his leave of the party. The officers of the Brotherhood declined to go any farther, and the curate paid them what was due them. The canon begged the curate to let him know how Don Quixote did, whether he was cured of his madness or still suffered from it, and then begged leave to continue his journey. In short, they all separated and went their ways, leaving to themselves the curate and the barber, Don Quixote, Sancho Panza, and the good Rocinante, who regarded everything with as great a resignation as his master. So everybody's going to go their own separate ways, and the people from Don Quixote's village, the barber and the priest, and Sancho, and of course the horse, they're just going to go back on to La Mancha. Everybody is saying goodbye to everybody, except for Rocinante, the horse, who doesn't really care. The carter yoked his oxen and made Don Quixote comfortable on a truss of hay, and as usual, and at his usual deliberate pace, took the road the curate directed. At the end of 6 days, they reached Don Quixote's village and entered it about the middle of the day, which it so happened was a Sunday, and the people were all in the plaza, through which Don Quixote's cart passed. So they finally get back after about a week of traveling with Don Quixote in the cart, resting up. And when they get back home, hey, everybody's out because it's Sunday, and in Spain, you walk through the plaza and look at everybody on a Sunday afternoon. So they can all see as Don Quixote's coming in. They all flocked to see what was in the cart. And when they recognized their townsman, they were filled with amazement. And a boy ran off to bring the news to his housekeeper and his niece that their master and uncle had come back all lean and yellow and stretched on a truss of hay on an ox cart. They said, hey, it's our neighbor. We all know him. And one guy runs off and says, I'm going to go tell his family and his servants that he's here and not looking healthy. It was piteous to hear the cries that two good ladies raised, how they beat their breasts and poured out fresh maledictions on those accursed books of chivalry, all which was renewed when they saw Don Quixote coming in at the gate. So the housekeeper and the niece show up and like, oh, Don Quixote looks terrible. Oh, we're very sad about that, but it's all these books' fault. Oh, we hate these books, just like we did before. And that is where we will go ahead and leave it for this week. Again, we are coming towards the end of the story, as Aaron said earlier. I almost called Aaron Don Quixote just now. So that'll wrap up. They're getting back. And everything is about to come to a head as Don Quixote tries to deal with his injuries and get back to himself. And for now, we will kick it over to continuity.
Thank you, Phil. Always a pleasure, sir. Appreciate the book club lessons here each week, and everyone that hangs out here with us. So, give us a short few minutes here, Gila, and we'll be right back around 1 o'clock, and we will touch base with you then. I think we're going to do the breakout session though here in the meantime. So. All right, thanks, Phil, and we'll head over to Licking County to finish out our day.
Here, everybody.